Hey, folks, you're listening to the Jobs Podcast. I am your host, Tim Hendricks, and let's go ahead and get started with our guest today. His name is Kevin Runyon. He is a landscape pro, outdoor kitchens, hardscapes. If you've got a yard that you want to make look beautiful, this is the man for the job. Welcome, Kevin.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
So let's go ahead and start off with an origin story of Kevin, a little bit of history about the man behind 417. I forget what the name of your business is. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no worries. Custom Creations, Landscaping and Lawn.
That's right. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, so, actually born in Tulsa, Oklahoma, but quickly moved to Marshfield, Missouri by the time I was about 2 years old. And Marshfield ever since, small town right outside of Springfield. And so that's where I came from.
Did you have any early influences as far as family members that worked in the same vein that you're in, or are you kind of a one-off from maybe what your parents did?
Yeah, no, I'm an individual story. Nobody in my family was in this industry at all. I was raised on a farm, so I have an agricultural background, but nothing in this specific industry at all.
What was there something when you were younger? Did you start mowing lawns in the summer, making money in high school, and it just kind of blossomed into a full-blown company? Or
Yeah, basically, yes. So when I graduated, my senior year of high school, I was planning to go to college, and I did go to college, but I was trying to find a good job to help pay for that. And I looked around at some commercial construction jobs and trying to get on with those guys because they paid pretty good. And nobody was hiring at the time. This was back in the year 2000. And so a friend of mine said, "Hey, I don't know if this is, what you want to do for a career or anything, but I mow yards on the weekends on the side." And he's like, "I have to turn people away." At that time, this is 25 years ago. So it's elderly and wealthy people and whatever.
Mhm.
Of course, mowing is very commonplace now, but back then it wasn't. And so I said, "Well, I don't know. It doesn't sound like much of a career, but we'll think about it." And another week went by and I said, "Well, maybe I ought to try this just to at least have something to do." Other than that, I had other jobs that I did. I had a hay hauling crew and different things like that, like most rural kids do, or did back then anyway. But so I made some flyers and hung them up at hair salons and put an ad in the local newspaper. And I had to borrow a push mower. I didn't even own one. So I borrowed a family member's push mower and away we went. My first year, I had 10 yards that I mowed.
That was back before the zero turn. You had to really earn your mowing whenever you were doing it with a push mower.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So you said you had 10 yards. Did it just start to take off, or did you do like fall cleanup? And then, we don't get much snow around here, but did you get into snow plowing, or what were the steps or the process that kind of had it take on a life of its own and become a full-fledged business?
Yeah. So that first year, senior year, I just mowed, just the small accumulation that I could get off of my flyers and whatever. And I also took a job with another guy that was, he's a few years older than me. He and I had hauled hay together, and he had taken over a mowing company that he had worked for, but he now owned it. And so I took on a job working for him and really learned more of the commercial side of it. And he and I bought some customers together and split them. And so I gained a few more customers that way, but I was still mowing kind of, in the amateur league. And so the next year, for whatever reason, I had a Springfield paper, which I didn't subscribe, so I don't know why I had it, but I was looking in the classifieds and somebody had put an ad in there for a small mowing company in Springfield that was for sale. They had a decent list of customers, and there was, I think, 2 older trucks, and one of them had a snowplow on it, and and a package of equipment. And so I didn't think that I could ever afford to do anything like that. A rural farm kid and didn't have it much to my name. So I'm like, well, I don't know, but I was interested. It piqued my interest enough. I called the guy and he told me all about it, and I got excited. So I just went to a locally owned bank here in Marshfield, sat down and talked with them, and they said, well, there's actually a chance we could do something. And I ended up getting an SBA loan through them, and I bought that company. And from there, of course, advertising was much different back then. Back then, it was yellow pages or
Yeah.
radio or TV and newspapers. That was about all you had, and or billboards or something like that. So, we were in the yellow pages, and we did different things, and of course, word of mouth. And so just kept growing it organically that way. Well, not organically, but I mean, through that type of advertising. And, and then with the advent of all the digital marketing, that was wonderful. And we now have a full-time marketing staff that helps us with all of those advertising needs. But yeah, I mean, the company just continued to evolve from there.
Did you have, when you bought this business, were there already other people that were the crew that would run? Because you got multiple trucks, you're just one person. Were you buying a set of employees essentially, or?
So there was one helper that worked for the gentleman that I bought it from, and I kept him on, and also hired another family member of mine and gave him a job because I was also going to school full time, so I needed some help. Yeah, so did that, and quite frankly, those two took every dime that we made. I didn't make anything for a few years. I mean, it's all we could do to keep the bills paid. We would, there would be times we were down to, I remember a time I was down to 34 cents in the company checkbook, and we needed to fill the truck up the next day. And I was like, what are we going to do? Luckily, I opened the mail that night, and I got a couple of checks from people paying their invoices. So, we just barely skinned by. And I mean, that continued for years. The rough part is the beginning.
You mentioned earlier that you were kind of doing the residential stuff, and then this other guy was doing the commercial stuff. Let's go down a bit of a rabbit hole. Is there a big difference between what you do on a residential job versus a commercial job, or is it kind of the same, just on a larger scale?
It's basically the same. To be honest with you, residential typically requires more detail. Commercial, depending on the business, don't get me wrong, there's always specifics, but I'm a very detail-oriented person, so I gravitate toward that, and other people aren't, and so they don't even want to mess with residentials because they know they're just going to get nitpicked and want every little thing taken care of. But in my world, I feel like I didn't do my job if they found something to have me come back and do. So the main difference in the two is typically just the level of detail that they require. Most people are a little more picky about their home than they are their office or warehouse or whatever the situation is.
The education that you got, or you were going to college, what were you studying in college again?
Well, oddly enough, I was going to school to be a veterinarian. I went to MSU. Of course, at that time it was SMSU, and got an animal science degree there, and then on to veterinary school at the University of Missouri.
So where was the gear shifted to where the veterinary stuff went away and you leaned into the landscaping stuff?
Well, when I finished veterinary school, I hadn't signed any contracts. I hadn't, made any definite plans yet, and just came back and just immersed myself back in the business, and it was just one of those things. I was there for a while, back in the business for a while, and a while turned into a long while, and then a long while turned into years, and then at some point it just took back over. So it was obvious that I was just going to stay in it. I gained incredible education and a vast amount of knowledge that I do use in the company, because we have in order to do what I did, I've got basically a biology degree and a chemistry minor. So that's very helpful in what I do. But a lot of the other things I don't use on a daily basis, but I do use in my personal life. So it's great knowledge to have. I don't regret it, but yeah, I ended up not using that.
You don't hear too many people that go through veterinary school and then just decide not to do it and go a different path, but that just goes to show you that you never know really where life's going to take you. So,
That's right. And I always tell everybody hopefully there's nobody like me out there. So I'm pretty unique.
so, looking over your website, you don't just mow lawns. I mean, you guys, you're doing trees, you're doing landscaping, you're doing boulders. I mean, you make it look like a private garden in somebody's home, especially with the outdoor fireplaces, kitchens, and whatnot. How did you shift gears from just kind of maintaining landscape to then doing into more of the hardscape outdoor living type stuff?
Well, so, in the beginning, of course, like, as we already covered, I was mainly just mowing yards, but, I've always been more of a detail oriented and kind of artistic slash creative type person. And so as I'm mowing these lawns, I would look at their landscaping as I'm doing my job, and I would like be like, oh, well, this looks really nice, but I wonder if they added like three of this right here, I think that would really set this off. And oh, maybe a boulder over there would look really neat. And I just really got interested in the landscaping, and so I started trying to advertise myself and get more of the landscaping type work. And as I did, I found that I really enjoyed that the most. And, and actually, 5 years ago, we stopped mowing. We haven't mowed in 5 years. We are strictly a landscape design, build, and maintain company, as well as on the lawn side of things. We do take care of lawns in the sense of providing fertilization and weed control programs, and fall seeding and aeration.
Is that fertilizer aspect? I can see your chemistry biology degree really coming in handy with that part of your business.
You bet. You bet. Yeah, it's very handy because to do that part correctly, of course, we're licensed through the USDA and they have a ton of regulations and we get inspected multiple times a year, surprise inspections at our facilities. So, they keep a close eye on us. But if you're using a chemical wrong, then there could be big repercussions, not only just to you from breaking a regulation, but also to the environment. And so, we're mixing ester compounds and different things like that. So, yeah, my degrees have come in extremely handy for that part.
Have the fertilizers that they use now? I'm going to use an example in my life. I had a part-time job working for a pest control company 24 years ago, just to get me through life kind of thing till I landed in my career. And I know now that a lot of the chemicals that we used back then, while they were extremely effective, were also, let's say, they were pretty stout as far as the environment goes. Are you seeing that same kind of a progression towards maybe chemicals that aren't quite as effective as the old stuff, but they're a lot safer for pets, for people, for the environment?
That is a huge shift in the green industry as a whole. Everybody's trying to, and honestly, people don't even like the word chemical. We try not to use it with, we say product or something like that.
I see.
And but yeah, I mean, absolutely. So everybody is much more environmental conscious, self conscious about our personal health, our pets' health, children's health, et cetera, which we should be. And it's a double-sided coin for people like me because we've had great products in the past that do the job that we need them to do. Like I need to kill this, this nimble weed out of this beautiful fescue and bluegrass lawn. Well, the product that does that is now not available for use. But I know it used to exist because we used to be able to do it, and now I can't do that anymore. And so, it's just things like that get a little frustrating, but at the end of the day, it's for the greater good. And so, our thing is we just have great communication with our customers. We're honest with them, be like, this is how we used to fight this. We're still looking for a new way to do it. I'm sure somebody's going to develop something new one of these days, but it's not here yet. But when it is, we'll know about it and we'll get it taken care of. But we also have some even better products than we used to have. We've got a lot more pre-compounded is the term I would use, products that didn't used to exist. So when we first started, we were mixing, 4 and 5 different jugs in our herbicides to do, a single lawn. And now, there's a lot of those that are pre-compounded with all those things in it that we already need to do the different weeds from clovers to grassy weeds, et cetera. And so some advances are good, and of course some are not. But if it's all in the name of the greater good, then I guess I'm behind it.
Well, yeah, you don't want to, I mean, a chemical may get rid of the crabgrass, but if you get a third arm growing out of your head, that's typically, that's frowned upon.
That
So,
could be frowned upon. Yeah, absolutely.
yeah, we got to find stuff that there's a balance, I'm sure.
Yeah.
What is that shift that you said where you moved away from mowing lawns to just doing hardscapes and I keep wanting to use the term landscape architecture. I don't know if that's an accurate term, but um, what was the moment like when you said, okay, we're just getting so much business on this side of the coin that we really want to lean into? Did you just phase out the other one, or was it a hard shift, or was it a gradual change?
It was a hard shift, and it was hard to do, quite frankly. Just from a historical and even emotional standpoint, mowing is what started this company that now, has multiple employees and supports many families, and, we're proud of. But so, to get rid of the thing that started it was a difficult choice mentally to do. But at the end of the day, financially, we were not turning a profit on the mowing anymore because, again, I started mowing over 25 years ago. So there was little to no competition. I would say in the entire city of Springfield, which has, population in the city limits well over 250,000. I mean, there might have been 10 mowing companies back then. And now, I mean, I can't imagine there's any less than 2,500. I mean,
Right.
between all the single person guys and the 2-man crews and the big companies, there's just literally thousands of them. And so with us in being the size that we are, we have to have our workers' comp. We have to have the big liability policies, and our overhead is huge. I mean, we're giving our employees benefits, and we're paying them good living wages where they can raise a family. And so you add in all that competition from companies who don't have the type of overhead that we do, and it just was not working for us anymore financially. So, I just had to make the hard decision, and we literally just cut it off one year. We let our clients know, and we just stopped it at the end of a season. That was it. We
Hmm.
knew we were not going to start back up the next.
You bring up a good point. When you're running a business correctly, where you have workers' compensation, you have liability, you want to provide a decent wage for your workers, there are all these boxes that a legitimate business wants to tick because that's just the smart thing to do. When
Right.
you compare with the guys that don't have to pay for any of that stuff and they can just show up and mow your lawn, and if they damage something, well, too bad, so sad, we're out of here. I can see how it would be tough to run a business correctly and still turn a profit when your competition isn't playing by the same rules.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And, I try to never talk negative about any other companies, but,
Sure.
because we all start somewhere. I started off as, just me and a push mower. So, I mean, I never frown upon anybody. I always applaud, the effort. But the truth of the matter is, when I started, I did not have insurance. I did not, have any of this overhead cost. I was still operating. I still lived at home. I was operating out of my parents' house. They put up with me parking trailers in their yard, for a few years. And so, I totally understand that. But for me, just the ethical side of me, I mean, I would have went to the bank and borrowed money to fix something that I broke if I couldn't afford it or whatever. But there are plenty of those that won't. And so, yeah, it's a huge struggle. And even now on the landscape side, we have a good reputation. We have all 5-star reviews. And, even now, there's plenty of even just landscape install companies that can and operate less expensively than we do. And so it takes the client understanding, what they're getting in the end product to hire us over them. If you don't know any better, or if you honestly don't care that much about, which one is better quality,
Mhm.
then, those are the customers that are going to flip the other way. But in the grand scheme of things, the customers that we probably don't need as the company.
The shift over to the hardscape, uh, I'm going off of just an opinion here, so please correct me if I'm wrong, but
Sure.
when you're mowing lawns, that's a constant turnover. There's constant work being done. There's constant payment, hopefully coming in, like you mow a lawn every week kind of a thing and you get paid for it kind of a deal. When you move over the hardscape stuff, you're taking on a much bigger project that I know that the end payment will be a lot larger, but you could go for an extended period of time without having any money coming in and only money going out.
Correct.
Is that accurate?
Absolutely, 100% accurate.
How do you plan for when you're moving from steady drip, drip, drip of income coming in to, all right, what's going to be lean for the next 3 weeks, 4 weeks, 5 weeks, whatever, however long a project may take? Is that just kind of plan ahead, save a little bit of money and nest egg, or how do you make that work?
Right. So, this industry in general is quote unquote seasonal. So most anybody in this industry is going to make, the bulk of their money in about an 8-month period of time, 8 to 9. And then their income is going to drop dramatically over the winter. Now we do snow removal and others do too, but as you mentioned, snow removal is very unreliable here. Sometimes it's okay. Sometimes there's none. Sometimes it's excellent, but it's nothing that you can count on. So yeah, we just over the years, so we mowed for roughly 20 years. And so between mowing and landscaping and all the things that we were doing at that time, we did hopefully make some smart decisions financially, and we keep reserve accounts because if the ground gets saturated in say November or December and we can't get our equipment on properties to do landscape installs, I mean, my employees still need their salaries, and all my bills are still due, and my insurance payments are due. So we have always have a reserve fund that we can pull out of. And if we pull out of it, then our first priority when the next season rolls around is as soon as we start getting good income again, we replenish that. We never deplete it. And I always try to get it to a certain level by the end of the year to where I feel like I'm safe for the winter no matter what comes. But so yeah, that took some time to build that up. And then, so you're basically, but when we do a landscape install, I'm basically financing that job for that customer until we're done. I do things a little different than a lot of companies. I mean, most companies take a deposit, and there's nothing wrong with that. They would probably think I'm insane for not, but I'm kind of a old school handshake kind of guy. And if they're entrusting me to provide, the product that they're wanting, that they've been dreaming about and thinking about, then, I trust them that they're going to do their part when we're done. And, I think it instills a lot of trust, on the client side in us that I'm not willing to take a dime until we're completely done and they are completely happy with this product and they sign off on it. And then I'll say, yes. So I will send you an invoice. So, it took a long time to build to that level, but look, again, 25 years, it was harder in the beginning. The good Lord has blessed us and we've done a lot of work, but we keep those reserve funds so we can fund the projects and we bill for them later. As you continue on that steady stream, it does catch up to you again. There's a lull when you first make that switch to a just installation company versus service. There's definitely a lag. It's like you're not getting regular, but now, the checks or the payments for the projects, they trickle in over a 30-day period. And so, now it's still, quote unquote, steady income for the most part. But yeah, we're at the end of the day, we are still completely reliant on that phone ringing. If that phone completely stops ringing or I quit getting website estimate requests, then we're out of work. And so that part can still keep me up at night. But again, we've been blessed, and so far that hasn't happened.
Do you have that lull in the wintertime? I can imagine you've got a pretty decent, I'll say stable of equipment,
Yes.
skid steer, tractors, lawnmowers, whatever you may have.
Yes,
Is the downtime, I can also see a double whammy in the wintertime where A, you're not having the regular influx of money coming in. And then B, that might be the downtime when your equipment gets some much needed repairs, some much needed maintenance, and that can be a good chunk of money going out. Is that typically what happens because of the seasonal ebb and flow?
Yes, absolutely. It, there's been a few winters when I can say that, we've just continued to be in the black all through winter. If it was a dry and mild winter and we could just keep landscaping, then, it's been great because we do typically have a backlog of work. And so, we always have work to do over the winter. It's just typically um, the weather doesn't allow us to do it, or the ground, it could be too wet or frozen or whatever, and so we can't install. So anyway, we've had a few successful winters that we would still be in the black, but many we're literally in the red. Again, we try to prepare for those financially, and we know that we are going to spend some money on upgrades and repairs and different things like that to our equipment, our tools, our facilities, our trucks. All of the things, get it, because that's when we have the most time to devote to that. So again, it all just boils down to smart budgeting and just trying to set back when you can. Definitely, definitely spend less than you make every day.
The reality of managing, owning, and running a business, there are a lot of things that I don't think people realize goes into success. It's nice to have the new equipment, the fancy new truck, but the reality is you need to keep that truck and then drive it until the wheels fall off, most likely. Most businesses, I don't think, should be going out and buying new equipment all the time. The maintenance part of it, planning for the slow season, planning for the maintenance, planning for I still need to pay my employees when there's not as much money coming in. There's so much scanning the horizon and seeing what's coming 2, 3, 4 months down. That's a lot of what running a business entails. And I think sometimes people realize that's where the successful and the failure start to part ways.
Yeah, I totally agree. I always say that you have to be half fortune teller to own a business. But yeah, we're constantly thinking about the future and planning. And if somebody's just running off of whatever's in the checkbook that day or the jobs that are coming in and they're busy for this couple months, I mean, everything could be great. I think most businesses, almost most in general, I think, have the feast and famine situation. There's, times of excess and times of not enough. And, we all have those ebbs and flows. But if you're basing things on a good time, you tell the wife we're going to buy a new boat and all these things, and then things slow down, then you can really hurt yourself and obviously your employees, your customers, all the things later down the road, because the last thing we want to do is have to lay someone off or let them go because we made a financial mistake or error, or I didn't see something coming. So yeah, you wear that weight every day. And I don't take it lightly when we hire someone, because I basically put it on my shoulders that they're depending on me to provide for their family. And so we really consider all hires. We consider them very intensely before we commit. And then we do actually make a commitment to them. The very last straw of anything would be to let our employees go. We would start trying to sell off other assets or whatever first and try to make it through whatever situation we might be in. Luckily, we haven't had to do any of that, but that would be my plan of attack if it did.
You just mentioned something there a second ago about when you hire somebody. Let's go down that trail about when you hire someone, when someone comes in and they're looking for a job and you're doing an interview. What are the kind of things that you look for in a potential employee?
So, in this industry, so we kind of need the ultimate person. Unfortunately, and they're hard, they're rare to find, but we need, ideally, they would have a great head on their shoulders, tons of common sense, and also be able to learn quickly and learn on the move. They also need to be as physically fit as possible. Of course, we don't all have to look like we go to the gym every day to be physically fit, but we work hard. We pick up boulders. We pick up trees, we dig holes, we rake dirt and rock. And that's what we do all day, every day. And to find the perfect person that has brains and brawn is very, very, very difficult. Also, then with that, another thing that we look very hard at is attitude. Um, we could have somebody come in that just checks every box, but they kind of got a negative attitude. And to be quite honest, I learned the hard way that we're not going to hire that person because um, that bad attitude is like a cancer in your
Hmm.
company, and you can ruin 5 good employees by putting up with that from one. And so um, we that is a big, big attribute that we look for. But yeah, it's as I think any business has a difficulty finding just the right employee. But the biggest I know, as long as they have a good attitude, if they have potential, then I'm willing to take a gamble on them because I can teach them what they need to know as long as they're open to it. But you can't change somebody's attitude most of the time. And so as long as they've got that and a willingness to learn, then it's a good fit for us.
I've seen a lot of, as I interview folks, a lot of them are in the position of hire. And when I was younger, it was always, well, did you have any kind of an associate's or a bachelor's, or what kind of education do you have? Now it seems like there's a lot more companies, big and small, saying, well, yes, if you have this, that's nice. We're also open to someone who has a little bit of life experience, but I'm more focused on your character because most jobs can be taught. Now, of course, if you're talking about a legal job or a medical field or something, you have to have specialized training. I think if you have someone who's moldable and teachable and they're willing to try as opposed to just kind of being a bump on a log, that's a lot of employers like that because it's like, okay, I've got something I can work with here as opposed to someone who right out of the gate has all the education in the world, but you can't teach them anything.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. Yeah. And so, I mean, I 100% agree with everything you just said. And one more point that what you just said sparked is I had someone tell me one time that they don't like to hire people with experience in their particular line of work because
Yeah.
they probably learned bad habits.
Hmm.
And we've found some of that. I'm 50-50 on that because it is helpful if somebody has some clue what they're doing when they start for us, and we're not starting with just a completely blank slate. But we have had some people bring a few bad habits that we've had to train out of them because what quality one company expects and what quality we expect are two different things. And so uh, it can provide a challenge. So yeah, I'm 100% on board with just a moldable, teachable person with a willingness to work and learn and a good attitude. I mean, I'll hire them over somebody that's been in landscaping for 20 years every day if they've got the right attitude.
What do you like most about your job now?
Well, I still work with my crew every day, almost every day. Once in a great while, I have too many bids or too much office work and I have to stay here. But I, I, I enjoy building landscapes. I also enjoy designing them, doing the bids and estimates and doing the designs because that's creative. But when you actually get to put that creativity to life and see it, form before you and see the reaction on the clients' faces and hear what they have to say, I mean, that's, just super fulfilling every day. I love it when they come home after work and we've put up, a retaining wall and they're like, oh my gosh, I'm glad I can finally see this. It looks so great. I couldn't
Hmm.
envision it before. Or, we add a water feature or a fire feature or, just incredible plantings and a cool design. So, that part is fun for me. The creativity and actually physically building the landscapes is probably my favorite.
It's not an instant gratification. I know your work isn't instant, but in a day or two where there was just a little hillside, you could have huge boulders, a big retaining wall, trees. I mean, you can just see the fruits of your labor in a short amount of time, and that's got to be satisfying.
Yeah, it is. It's very fulfilling. I'm a very goal oriented person in general, and so usually at the beginning of every day, I kind of set a goal for where I want that project to be by the end of the day, and so sometimes they're lofty goals and sometimes they're, easily attainable. But as we work to achieve those goals, and then we step back at the end of the day with, all the crew, and we're like, hey, what do you guys think? That turned out pretty good, don't you think? And everybody's snapping pictures and texting their wives like, hey, look what we built today. And I mean, that's such a good feeling. And yeah, I absolutely love it. And I love it when our clients love their spaces, use their spaces, and want to invite people over and show them off. I mean, there's no better compliment in the world.
I'm I don't mean to step on any toes here to the ladies listening, but when I hear you talk about how you're building, and I know that you'll have, backhoes and different type bulldozers and equipment there to move. It seems like I'm a guy and I listen to that. I'm like, that does sound like fun to just be on a skid steer on it. I mean, every guy has a Tonka truck growing up, and it just seems like guys are in their element when they're building stuff in nature.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I agree. I think, I mean, men and women have, different innate senses, I think,
Hmm.
and, we can't fight that. It's part of human nature. But I'll be honest. I think I've employed in the past on our landscape install crew, I've probably employed 4 different women, and our company currently employs 5 women, as a company as a whole. And I tell you, I mean, some of them are honestly some of the hardest workers we've ever employed. I mean, they could outwork a guy 2 to 1, and it's kind of sad to say that, but um, and what's nice is I've also found that ladies can be more naturally detail oriented
Mm.
than some of the guys, which for me is huge. I am a detail guy. I want every rock in place. I want every blade of grass in place. We don't leave until it's perfect. And so, I can get those results with less overwatch typically from the women that work for us. And I love that aspect of it. It's wonderful. I mean, if it's just the fact of I need some more strength to help me pick up this rock. I mean, I got guys on the crew, but when I'm like, hey, I want this. If I have to leave, I have to go do bids, but they need to do the detail work. It's like, hey, I want this detailed out. Quite frankly, it's awesome to have a lady on the job site. And don't get me wrong, we have guys that do that as well. Because again, people are teachable and they know that that's what I want and that's what they look for. But I've just found that naturally women really take to landscaping quite well, honestly.
When men and women work together, it can be pretty impressive. Do you find that when you're landscaping, you'll have a certain vibe from if it's all guys doing it, and then women come in and they just maybe soften the edges or open up something that you didn't see, a window to a better view, or these plants over here just don't quite look right next to this rock. They look better over here. You talk about the detail stuff. It's just that masculine and feminine energy just kind of vibing. And do you find like that marries well? Do you see that often?
Yes, I would agree with that statement. So 95% of the time when we're installing, we're just installing what I've already designed and bid, and it's on paper, and I'm placing the plants and whatever. But when the way our process goes is we'll set the boulders and we'll set the trees and then we'll set all the other plants, and then we step back and we look at it. And I want input. I don't make every right decision in life. I never have and never will. And so I want everyone to look at it and be like, what do you guys think?
Mm.
And I want everybody to take a turn and tell me it looks, and they can tell me it looks good, or they can be like, well, what if we pulled those to the front a little bit and actually put this other one behind it? How would that go? And of course, you're dealing with sizes and scale and textures and all that when you do all those things. But it is what I have noticed is guys versus girls. Girls will typically have more opinions on that, which I'm totally excited about because I want to hear fresh takes. Because again, I never made every right decision. I don't think Michelangelo or Leonardo or anybody ever made every right decision in something they created. So I want that input, and the ladies that have worked for us typically will have a little bit more input. They'll be like, "Well, what do you think about switching this and this?" And I think that would look really cool, or just scoot that over a little bit. Whereas the guys would just be like, it looks great. And so, I find that that is true. There's a difference there. And, but, I don't know, just those two differentials work well together, though. I would certainly say they do.
Well, it sounds like you're wanting it the right way, not your way. And the right
100%.
way, yeah, that's what the customer is wanting. And so, I mean, if you have multiple people, if I forget what the phrase is, a rising tide raises all ships kind of thing,
Correct.
it's a team effort. You can make it work that way and lean into the talents that you have on your team.
100%. Yeah. I think if you don't let the people on your team express their talents, then I don't think you're a very good leader. I mean, to be quite honest about it, because no one's ever going to develop any further in life if you keep your thumb on them. You've got to let them spread their wings a little bit, make a few mistakes, learn from them, and get better. Always.
Yeah, I would agree with that 100%. We talked earlier about the changes that you've seen as far as like the fertilizer and things of that nature. Have there been any other changes in maybe technology or in the equipment that you use, or a big industry shift are you using more native plants? Is that like a national thing, or kind of, you see anything that's changed like that?
Yeah. So I would say, many shifts in landscaping in general. So I would say, just on the design standpoint, I think landscaping is just like anything. People redo their kitchens every, 15, 20 years, and, they remodel their bathrooms about the same. And I mean, there's fads in all of it. Back in the day, people had Harvest Gold appliances, and now they want stainless steel or black stainless steel or gold. Just things change. And so we've seen the same thing in landscaping, so plants will come in and out of fashion, different plant species, and then mulch versus rock. When I first started, mulch was king. I mean, we might have rocked 2 jobs a year, and now we rock 95%, if not closer to 98% of our jobs, and rarely used. But I attribute that to people having less time and wanting more permanency. Honestly, they don't want to deal with it. Everybody wants the least maintenance possible. So those shifts on the design aspect are one thing, but then also, you mentioned technology, and technology has been. I tried to make it to. There's a giant trade show in Louisville, Kentucky, for our industry every year in the fall, and I try to make it out there every few years, 5 years, whatever. And I had a longer break this last time. It had been 8 years since I've been there, and we went 2 years ago, and the amount of technology that is available out there versus the last time I attended this conference 8 years before that is just absolutely incredible. I would say it multiplied 4 times over. But I try to stay up on trends. I get industry magazines. I see all the new things, but I never have time to read the articles on the new tech. I know it exists, but I don't know anything about it, type of deal. So I know it's there. It's hard to take the time to study that and incorporate it. But when you're in something like a trade show and you're walking and you're talking to these people, that you're immersed in it. And so, we're introduced to so many things that make our life better. And I typically will come out of every trade show, with 5 to 6 purchases from different things, and that will include technology, tools, equipment, whatever. But so technology has just been huge, both on just operating software to be able to operate your business more efficiently, to um, estimating software, and then the design software that I use to give presentations to clients has just improved so greatly. It's all CAD based, but the the imagery is so much better than it used to be. It's not just circles anymore. You're actually looking at shrubs, and you can see what it looks like, and it's incredible. And I have this crazy measuring tool that works off of a gyroscope, and it hooks into my phone, and I can walk around the property and just drop that I think drop it every 8 seconds, and it maps the whole thing for me. And just these kinds of things that make me more efficient and more accurate are incredible. And then advances in equipment have been amazing too, and a lot of it is attributed to technology. So, our skid steers, they now have the capabilities to be run by remote control. And
Good grief.
yeah, and they don't require keys anymore. You punch in computer codes, and you can have different operator settings. If I like the skid steer to have this much sensitivity, I can set that. But then my operations manager might like it with more or less sensitivity than I do, and he can set his operator settings, and the machine will respond completely differently to the two of us. And then tracking, like they track their own maintenance now. They tell us what they need, and you can. I don't do this, but they have the capability to send all that information to my phone, and so I can tell if I'm not on a job site, I can tell that they're about to run out of fuel, or that we have an overheat, or I can just see where that machine is GPS wise. Just these kinds of things are just incredible, and just also the accuracy of equipment with the use of electric over hydraulic controls. You can get just so precision with the bucket of a skid steer or excavator.
Yeah.
It's incredible. And versus just old straight hydraulics. Hydraulics are incredible. We're going to have them forever, because there's in my opinion, there's nothing better on the face of the earth, because I dig holes in rocks every day, so I need hydraulics. But having that electric over hydraulic control is just a game changer versus what it was 20 years ago. You couldn't make those minute and fine changes. It was a lot rougher to operate. So yeah, rides are better, technology's better, trucks are more efficient, and more power. So yeah, I mean, everything, there's so many changes. And yeah, sometimes I think about the way I started versus 25 years later now. It's crazy. But then I also think back to the time when my great grandfather was alive. He saw telephones come into homes, and electricity be commonplace in homes. And now, my children, they don't know a life without cell phones and iPads and flat TVs,
Yeah.
and remote controls. They didn't know that we could get up and change the channel and adjust the rabbit ears. They don't know these things. And so it's really fascinating to sit back and think about that, all those changes.
They don't know a TV that weighs 360 pounds and takes
They
three
do
people to
not.
move.
They do not. Yeah, absolutely. And that's usually sitting on top of a TV tray that's about to
Right.
collapse.
The data that you can get that you were just talking about, can see it being a double-edged sword, as far as it's so helpful for staying on top of your maintenance, recognizing if you have a mechanical problem coming down the road, seeing if your equipment is stolen, for example. But then I also can see it being like, man, I'm information overload. Like, there's just too much of this stuff coming at me, and I just want to go back to pushing a mower.
Yeah.
Maybe not that far, but sitting on a
Right.
zero turn, maybe let's be
Yeah.
more realistic.
Yeah. No, I couldn't agree with that statement more. So all of that technology is absolutely incredible. And, I mean, it's not priceless. I mean, of course, there's only so much you're willing to pay for it, but in some instances you do feel like it's priceless. But I actually had a conversation with my wife recently, about just this information overload, like and this is getting slightly off subject, but with, social media and phone tracking and Life 360 and Track My Phone and all these things, we know where everybody is all the time. We know exactly what they're doing. We know exactly what their kids are doing, if they got a home run or not. And then, you transfer that into work. And just like you said, I'm getting all this data sent to my phone on all these pieces of equipment, and I've got customers texting me and emailing me and calling me. And, at the end of the day, quite honestly, I just want to take my phone and go throw it in my pond. But, so I couldn't agree more with the information overload. I think you really have to be smart about what you do and don't do. So as I mentioned, like, I have the capabilities to do all that stuff with my equipment to my phone, but I don't do it because I'm fielding 30 plus phone calls a day as it is, and probably 25 to 30 texts on top of that, plus trying to work in the field, plus running the business as a whole. And so the last thing I need is more stuff being thrown at me. But I do find it amazing that the technology is there. And if I want to, use it, if I needed it, it's at my fingertips. But
Mhm.
I do like that I get to choose to use it. But I think everyone needs to be very smart about how much information they allow in, because sometimes it can be too much and it can almost be obsessive.
I've I'll go off on my own little tangent for a second. Some of these companies, the audacity of the things that they ask for sometimes is, I'm not surprised by much, but I'm signing up for, a grocery card, discount card, and they want my social security numbers. Do not need that.
Never,
And
never.
I just don't understand. I mean, but I guess they ask, and a lot of people just go, oh, okay, well, I'll take 15 cents off a can of beans. Here's my most personal number about everything about me. I just wish people would stop doing it. But,
Right.
that's for another podcast.
Fair enough.
You may have just answered it, but what do you dislike most about your job? Because every job, even the ones that we love, has an aspect or two that we would love to just do away with.
Yeah. So I'll just be, very open and honest on this answer. My least favorite aspect is honestly just, well, it's twofold. It's stress and time. Uh,
And
One
those
is
are
very high
intertwined,
and one
aren't
is
they?
very low.
Yeah.
So wearing all the hats for a company our size is beyond. To be honest with you, I usually put in 80 plus hours a week. A lot of times 90 in the spring, and then in the winter I'll still be here 65, 70 hours a week. I start very early in the morning and I get home very late at night. I have a wife and kids, but luckily my family's very understanding. And when we are together, then we are together. And I will answer the phone, but I don't take away from them my time with them to do other things. But honestly, in the beginning, I had to. When you're building a business and you have no one else to rely on, I always tell I have a lot of young landscape people who come to me and ask me questions and want advice, and I tell them there's 24 hours in a day, so you better get used to using most of them.
Hmm.
So I take all the weight of the business. I take all the finances. I take honestly, again, go a step further than some might do, but I take all of my employees' successes and failures personally. If I want my employees to be, shopping for a new house or get a new truck every, 10 years or whatever, because, that means that we're appropriately, um, paying them and providing for them so they can appropriately provide for their family. And that makes me feel good. So their successes and failures weigh on my shoulders. I kind of decide whether we're doing the right thing based on how their morale and their personal lives. And I know that's not right from a business aspect, but we operate more like a team and a family. And so I don't always just incorporate all business here. It's we care about our employees. We grow up with their kids. We watch them grow up. We share in their their successes and the hard times. We share in all of that. So um, there's a lot of weight that goes with all of this, and so stress factor is very difficult and can really bring you down. And I've spent a lot of time in a depressed state. I continued to move on and do my job, but I spent a lot of time in a depressed state, and it just took a long time to just wrap my head around um, being able to take on all that pressure and be positive about it. So that was a long, long road, and it's going to continue. I don't see that weight coming off of me anytime soon. And then on the time standpoint, I've already kind of touched on it. I tell guys there's 24 hours in a day. You need to be using most of them. When I first started and I was the only employee and I was everything, I guarantee you there was days I worked 20 hours. There was days I worked 24 hours because I would do this job all day and then I would go, I was still needed more income. So I would still run my hay hauling crew all night. And then, I would try to find something for breakfast that would give me a little energy, and I'd go back to mowing yards the next day. And so yeah, I could do that for about 3 days, and I would just about collapse. But
My goodness.
yeah, it's tough. And yeah, so those are the two negatives. I mean, I don't mean to be a Debbie Downer, but
No.
business ownership is hard. It's not putting on your collared shirt and telling people what to do all day and showing up at 10 and going home at 3. It's not like that.
Hmm.
I'm here at 5:30 in the morning, and I typically get home a little after 8:30 at night. But that's a normal day. So there's a lot to it. And so, one of my goals in life, as I do mentor a few people who are entrepreneurs and come talk to me and ask me questions, is I do shoot them straight. I'm like, if you have this glorified idea of what business ownership is, I've got some bad news for you. You better put your seatbelt on because we're going to talk.
The reality of owning a business, there's a lot of people out there that it's almost cheesy in how they say rise and grind, and they're always talking about how they're grinding it out when this is an image that they're portraying on social media about how they're in the thick of it and they're doing all these things, wheeling and dealing and whatnot. And then you have the folks that when you drive by an office early in the morning, it's 4:30, you're going to work and there's a light on already in that company. And most likely that's the man or the woman that started that thing and they have everything invested in it. They're the ones that got up, made a cup of coffee and headed to the office, or late at night, they're out still working. I've talked to enough people on this podcast that have their own business or started their own business to know that grind is legit. And if you're not careful, it can consume you and take a lot from you. But if you're willing to stick it out and not give up, you can be successful on the other side. You just have to be willing to go through that.
Absolutely. It's a tough part of the journey, and depending on specific person and the industry that they're in and different things, it can last a long time. I mean, mine was many, many years of that. I just felt like a shell of a person. I gave everything I had to my customers, and there just wasn't much left at the end of the day. And I felt like I blinked my eyes and I had to get up and do it again. And I just forced myself to move. But I did get through that. Unfortunately, it lasted longer than I wish it would have, but I did get through that. And now, now I attribute a sore back and some yawning and all the things. But I mean, I look around and like, hey, we're providing for all these people and all these families, and we are also providing to our customers, a great product that they can be proud of and enjoy. And so I find joy in all of it. And so at that point, it puts worth behind everything that I'm doing and pouring into this. And so it definitely helped pull me out of that, but it took a very long time to do that.
There's something to be said for satisfaction and a job well done. And I know that may come across as cheesy, but there seems to be this mindset from some younger folks nowadays, and I'm starting to sound like an old man screaming at the clouds, but
You are.
I know, but you almost get the impression that if it's hard work, then somehow you're being exploited or you're being taken advantage of or you're being punished in some way. But sometimes you just got to roll up your sleeves and do it so you can look yourself in the mirror and know I did a really good job, whatever it is.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. No.
Tidbits from Tim. That's going to be a new, I'm going to give a new side podcast, little shorts, tidbits from Tim. I'll give a little advice.
Well, I'm going to keep that one. I like it. But yeah, I'm kind of strange. If I have an office day, I could stay here at the office and have to work on a bid that day that is super involved. I could present it and we get it. And I mean, I could have signed a $500,000 deal that day, but I go home at the end of the day and I don't feel as good about myself as the days that I'm out raking dirt all day or, building that 8-foot tall retaining wall and my back is killing me and my shoulders are killing me. And I feel better at the end of those days than I do, even if I had this great financial success or whatever, or made this great decision that paid off and like, oh my gosh, this is wonderful for the company. Yeah, I'm kind of weird in that way. That's why I have no idea if and when I'll ever retire, because I like working and I find fulfillment in it. So yeah, again, I don't think there's very many people like me. I kind of hope there's not, because it'd be tough on them.
So you just mentioned money, and I never ask my guests how much they make. But if someone was coming to you and saying, hey, I'm thinking about following in your footsteps, I like what I see in your line of work, but I don't know what to expect as far as pay. Now, I know that you've had kind of two different careers. You had the landscaping, mowing side of things, and now you're doing the hardscape, landscape architecture type stuff, landscape design. Do you have any ballpark figures that you could throw out there just to give someone a rough idea?
Well, I think, I think the pay that you can expect from owning business is an ever evolving thing. And it has everything to do with the market that you're in. So in my business and in the green industry as a whole, I've always said for a long time, if my business was in St. Louis or Kansas City, we would probably turn 3, 4 times the annual revenue that we do now, just because it's a different market and there's more clientele there. If you drive into Kansas City and St. Louis, you'll see more gas stations that are landscaped and fertilized and all the things. Almost every home is to some level, and some are to extreme levels. Whereas in our little pocket of the world, there's beautiful properties, don't get me wrong, but then there's also so many that don't do anything. And the commercial side and the business side of thing around here, not as many businesses are as concerned with the appearance of their landscape and their lawn as I feel like they are in other markets. So,
Hmm.
people spend money differently here, which I'm fine with. I mean, we've found our home here and we love it. But so in the beginning, I would think I was honest in earlier on in the podcast. I There was years that I was basically negative. My wife was a school teacher, and as overpaid as they are, sarcastically,
Yeah, I know.
that we honestly would not have survived without her income, as meager as it was back then. Um, but so I mean, I lost money for a few years, and then it kind of hit a break even point for a few years, and then I started making very meek profits. And I'm also teaching myself. I didn't come into an existing business that already had pricing schedules and everything. I literally created it from nothing, and so I didn't have pricing strategies. I didn't know what my overhead was. I didn't do all those formulas. I didn't do all the things. I went with my gut, and sometimes my gut won and sometimes it failed me. So, you know, I'd say 10 years in, we we felt like we actually were becoming a business at that point, and it's like, okay, we're not just going to give this thing up. It's actually doing something, but it took almost 10 years to get there. And I mean, at that point, I would certainly, business owner, you get a few perks. I mean, quite frankly, the company owns my truck and things like that. So I don't have to take those out of my personal pocket. So I keep my personal income as low as I possibly can. My personal income is not high at all that I take home, but I have a few perks that the company takes care of. But if you're just paying yourself a wage, then hopefully within the first 5 years, you can pay yourself close to 50,000 a year. That's not a huge salary in the year 2025, but that's the reality of it, because there's a lot of expenses, and especially you're going to be labor heavy. I was always very light on labor, and I just took the brunt of the work on myself, and I think that's the only reason I ever survived. But as you continue to grow, it does, you do better and better, and as you build those reserves, you feel more and more comfortable about, not only your salary but your employees' salaries, and so you know well well into it, in the 20-year mark, 25-year mark, if you've done things right, you could be in the six figures for sure in this
Hmm.
industry.
There are a lot of advantages to owning a business from a tax perspective. You can write off equipment and, like you said, the business can own your truck and things of that nature. I don't know if mileage is something you can write off, but I know you find an accountant that is good with small businesses or running a business. They can help you take advantage of a lot of things. So is that a fair statement?
Absolutely, absolutely. We like every small business, we play the tax game. We kind of I My office manager, usually around October, I asked her to basically do a trial run of our taxes for the year. Like, as of today, if today was tax day, kind of look at where we are and see where we're at, and that gives me a snapshot of, if we're going to have this huge tax burden, okay, maybe it's going to be smarter for us to go, two of our trucks probably could use to be upgraded, so maybe we're going to do that. And just make those types of decisions that rest on my shoulders to make. And so we try to do that. So we all play that game a little bit, and it's not just a game. I mean, it's a necessity for running a business. And but yeah, you have to have the right person helping you on the financial side of it. It's worth the investment because winging it can cost you a lot more money than that person is going to charge you. So absolutely, my advice to anyone is get somebody that truly understands the taxes of a small business and can help, ease that burden, whichever way that is. So, I mean, I realize that our government needs money to exist, but I don't want it to all be mine.
I have never related to a statement more than that one right there.
There you
It
go.
does feel like, yeah, Tim is running the government with every cent that they take from me, but that's for another podcast. I'm not going to get into politics and ruin everybody's evening. What are your future plans? What's the next 5, 10 years for you and your company?
Well, so, I don't see me stopping anytime soon. In 10 years, that will put me behind the wheel of this for 35 years. I would like to begin thinking about stepping back a little at that point. But so 5 years from now, the goal is that we would really have um, a couple of key people in place, which we have them on staff now, but it's just further training and adding knowledge to them of the business to start taking over certain aspects of operations, which is what I do. And so I want to start feeding that in and, basically start molding my replacements. And then at the 10-year mark from now, maybe that's the time where I step back, and I don't ever see myself quitting completely unless I'm just crippled. But I'd like to think that maybe I only need to be here 3 days a week because right now I'm a 6. So it sounds pretty good. But, something like that. I see in 10 years, hopefully I'm to the point I could step back and, that time aspect that I said we have none of, hopefully I can gain a little of that back. But yeah, I'm hoping the company continues on for many, many, many years. I don't know if we'll sell it or if someone internally will take over it. I don't know yet, but that's yet to be seen.
I don't know you too well, but you strike me as a person that would never retire until they're putting you in a pine box and burying you 6 foot under. You,
That's the plan as of today, but we'll
yeah.
see what we'll see.
All right. What's your advice if one of your employees makes a mistake, or you make a mistake? I ask this question for a very specific reason with every single guest that I have. I want to know what your approach to failure is, either from yourself or an employee, and then what's your process to work your way through it, come out on the other side.
Yeah, absolutely. So, the first remark is, no one is perfect. And when an employee makes a mistake, am do you know do I sometimes get aggravated? Absolutely. But for me, when I make a mistake, I will be probably 4 times as aggravated at myself as I would at them. But so I completely 100% look at failure as a part of learning to be successful. I don't think anyone is always successful or fully successful. I think everyone makes mistakes. It's just what makes someone successful is how they deal with those mistakes, right? How do they fix it? How do they correct it? If you run from it, you're probably not going to be successful, right? But if you meet it head on and you're honest and you do whatever it takes to fix that and in an ethical, moral way, I think, you're building character, you're building success for the future because I mean, in 25 years, it's not like we've never made a mistake on a job and had someone bring something up that they might not be completely happy with, but it's how we deal with that.
Yeah.
And it's my job to go above and beyond to make sure that that is correct. And the dollars and cents go out the window at that point. It doesn't matter that, oh, well, we're at our budget on what we were going to spend for your project. If I spend any more to charge you, in my opinion, that goes out the window. If we did not perform on our side, it doesn't matter. We're going to fix it. And so, you know, I think the integrity and how you deal with a situation is paramount. But yeah, I think if you look at failure as just failure and that is your character coming out on the other side, then that person is never going to know what it is to be successful, because how would we ever know what success feels like if we never failed, right? So, and so if one of my employees makes a mistake, then I point it out and I say, okay, I give them an opportunity to figure out how to fix it. I'm like, okay, hey, here's the problem that I see, or here's the mistake that was made. Now we need to come up with a solution. And I said, so, do you have one, or can you come up with one? And I give them the opportunity. And if they can't, then I tell them what my solution is, and I tell them why, and I tell them, and then I explain to them, and then I will go as far, maybe this is too far, but I will go to as far as to explain, okay, so this is how this is affecting the job in the company, right? This is probably this is a $300-$400 mistake or whatever. I do explain that to them, not to belittle them, but to educate them. And, I think education is the king to, not make those mistakes again. If you just tell somebody they did something wrong, they're apt to do it again. If you teach somebody that they did something wrong and how to correct it and why it was wrong, I feel like they're much less apt to make the same mistake twice. And so, yeah, my big deal is just to educate them on it. And I go through the same process in my head. If I make a mistake, one of the biggest that I've made recently it was just last year on an estimate. I was tired. I'll be honest. I think it was like almost 9 o'clock at night. I was working estimates up here in the office, and there was a job that we needed 14 loads of topsoil on. Well, I, in my incoherent state, took that as 14 yards of topsoil. And
Oh
so
boy.
that bid was off by thousands of dollars in the
Yeah.
customer's favor.
Yeah.
It did not cost them near as much as it should have. But at the end of the day, I certainly was very angry with myself, but I saw where the mistake was, and I know why I made it, because I was trying to do too much in one day. So trying to learn from that. And then I ate the cost. I mean, it was not that client's fault. They accepted the job as I presented it, and they got the product that they deserved. I just did not get the profit. So, I mean, again, we all make mistakes. It's how you deal with them, I think, that matters.
Yeah, I think that the response is 90% of it. It's inevitable. We'll all make mistakes, but how you respond to that. And I think your approach about letting your employees know, look, this is how this is affecting. This is the real world. You have downstream effects for every decision that we make. You made a mistake. It's not the end of the world, but this is how it affects me, the company, your coworkers, etc. Because people need to think beyond themselves and go, if I make a mistake, it's just not me. This affects other people. And, that's again for a whole other podcast about, paying attention to what's going on around you and thinking about other people versus just yourself. But you're absolutely right that you make a mistake. Okay. Now, how are we going to move forward past it? So,
Absolutely.
well, man, you have taken time out of what I now know is an absurdly busy schedule to spend time to talk with me. So
Yes, sir.
I feel bad that I've kept you this long, but I thank you so much. It was a lot of solid advice and a really good glimpse into what it's like to grow a business from the ground up and the sacrifice it takes. I think your employees are very lucky to have you as their supervisor, and I wish you nothing but continued success. If anybody's listening and they want to find your company, how can they contact you?
So the simplest way, of course, we touched on the new technology of the world. So, I could spit out my phone number, but nobody remembers that. But you can Google us. Our website is customcreations417.com. It talks about all the services that we provide, and we have ways to contact us on there. You can do an estimate request on there. You can apply for a job, all the different things. Luckily, we have an in-house person that takes care of all of that for us. And so it's a great website and easy to navigate.
Right on. Thank you so much, Kevin. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you for the opportunity. I thank you very much.
And that wraps up another episode of the Jobs Podcast. Thank you so much for joining me today. Hopefully you found that interesting. As always, I wait until the end of an interview to ask you to like, subscribe, and share. I feel it's important that I earn that support from you. Thanks again, and we will see you on the next one.